So Keir Starmer in Kyiv, look, he's an opposition leader, so by definition, we're talking symbolism here, but it's welcome in its way to Volodymyr Zelensky.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It definitely is. We need to have a continuity of approach here. This is above party politics, clearly. So yeah, like every politician, he uses words carefully and so forth. But I think it's a very positive move.
All right, now let's get straight to what's going on the ground, or maybe not going on the ground in Ukraine, because we've been talking endlessly, it seems, about a coming Russian fresh offensive, and then just a day ago we hear the defense secretary saying that 97% of the Russian army are in Ukraine now, and there's no intelligence pointing to a mass buildup of armor or troops that would signify a big new fresh attack. What do you make of it all?
Well, it's always difficult, isn't it, to see through what's going on. It's rather like all the casualty figures and the other figures that are bandied around. And we know from previous campaigns that in terms of numbers, we need to be not skeptical, but we need to be, we need to think carefully about accepting them on too much of a face value. I mean, 97% is a big figure. I heard the Defense Secretary make that comment on the Today program.
Startling, wasn't it?
It was, and I've got a lot of time for Ben Wallace. I mean, he and I have fallen out of a couple of things, particularly how we pulled out of Afghanistan. But I think he's doing a really good job as Defence Secretary, and the way that he has approached all of this is pretty impressive. But if it's anywhere near, I mean, whether it's 97% or 90% or 80%, the reality is a large chunk of the Russian land capability is focused on Ukraine.
Yeah,
and that's sends a powerful message in and of itself. That clearly for the last couple of months, there's been a really static attritional warfare going on, mostly in the Donbass and in the east. My personal view has always been that the Russians would not walk away from this easily. And therefore, there is a possibility of offensive coming from the north through Belarus. There's, again, I think, a possibility of the Russians trying to secure the land route to Odessa and secure the north of the Black Sea. And, of course, maintaining the pressure in the east. Now, it has to be said that British intelligence and indeed American intelligence has been pretty good so far at identifying, what's going on. And if they're not saying that there's sufficient concentration to punch a major hole through in a counteroffensive, then, we need to accept that at face value. But my own view is that offensive is coming at some stage.
Yes. And some of your fellow experts are saying it has begun in many ways now, that they are trying to advance on several fronts. Although there's this latest NATO intelligence apparently which says that Russia's losing maybe 2,000 men for every 100 yards gained, which again suggests that maybe the Russian offensive capability is somewhere near its capacity now. And then combine that with Mark Milley, the US chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, saying it's all going to end at the negotiating table. There are reasons for Ukraine to feel that no need to despair.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, Ukraine has done, obviously a fantastic job in the last year holding firm. Again, I don't want to bang on about it, but we need to be careful about these casualty figures. And we don't know. When we talk about casualties, there's obviously dead, there's wounded, there's people who've been captured, and there are, all sorts of things that you can play, the figures you can play. But nonetheless, the Russian way of doing business, and we know this from, 1943, 44, the attack on Berlin, the way that they've used soldiers in the various campaigns they've been involved with more recently, is that they tend to throw infantry at the problem. They're not highly trained people, and they're not worried about the sort of numbers we're talking about here in the same way that we would be. So, in that sense, I don't want to be glib about it, but in that sense, it's not surprising. Ukraine have done a fantastic job, and they are holding firm. My concern, to be honest, is in simple terms, plan A is to make sure Ukraine doesn't lose, whatever we mean by that, and holds firm in the east and, maintains its strength. And therefore, at some point in time, the Russians come to the negotiating table. Fine. But what's plan B if the Russians do break through, or if they come from the north and threaten Kiev, and they look like they are going to surround and cut off a lot of the Ukrainian forces? Or indeed, we mustn't forget that Ukraine's been fighting this intense war for the best part of a year now. Their people are tired. Their soldiers are tired. The equipment program is not brilliant. We've been helping them out, obviously, substantially. But in terms of the latest promises, they're going to take a long time to come to fruition. And some of them I don't think will come to fruition, frankly, from the West. So, yeah, they're doing a fantastic job, but they're tired. They're taking casualties themselves. It's all very well quoting Russian casualties, but Ukraine are taking serious casualties themselves. So this thing is, as we've said many times, this is not going to be resolved quickly. And I think we're still in for a long haul here.